2 scallop a la carte, 1 mackerel tartare. Everything I do at the restaurant is to do with seasonality, to the extent I'm absolutely fanatical about it. As soon as something's in season, I want it on my menu and I want my customers to be enjoying it.
Tom Kitchen is a Michelin-starred chef based in Edinburgh. His whole philosophy is about eating seasonally and eating locally. Right now it's mushroom season, so on his day off, Tom and his wife Michaela are in Perthshire, foraging for mushrooms.
There's some here.
Well done.
These are good ones, aren't they?
Brilliant. Oh, this is lovely. Look at that. Good size.
The thing is, in your family, you're actually known as Hawkeye for mushroom picking, aren't you? Eh? Eh? Nothing yet. There I am, walking past them, standing on them. Look, Mikan, there's one.
Yeah.
Deadly red ones.
Look at the colour of that, though.
It's just got red alert written all over it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
People have to be really careful that they know which mushrooms to pick.
Yeah. The thing to do is to really always stick to the ones that you are 150% sure of, really.
Yeah. The colour, it just looks poisonous, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Come on, then. Oh, here's some.
Oh, yeah. Ah, here we go. It's funny, when you find one, you find loads, don't you?
Back at the restaurant, it's business as usual as Tom gets to work on the mushrooms.
We're using the Giro mushrooms that we found when we went mushroom picking. We sweated them down. We've got the shoulder of veal, and we've combined the mushrooms with the veal, and we're making some lovely raviolis to go for the lunch menu today. For me, eating seasonally and eating with seasonality means that you're eating the produce of the land, you're understanding exactly what's coming into season, what's going out of season.
For Tom, it took time away from Scotland working in France as a young chef to fully understand seasonality.
It was really brought to my attention, I think, when I moved to France. And there you go to the markets, and just depending on what season you were in, you could just look at the vegetables and you would understand exactly what was going on.
And it was also at this time that Tom started to appreciate just how good the food was back home.
And I was using Scottish produce in all these different restaurants I was working in. So something was starting to tell me that, you know, this incredible larder that we had back home, but why were the best restaurants in London and Paris using our produce? Surely that produce should have been used in Scotland as well. We have the best shellfish in the world, we have the best meat, we have game, we have everything that we want in Scotland. But I think one of the main problems is there's only a few people who actually realise that we have these quality ingredients. And 90% of the produce isn't actually staying in Scotland, it's going to Europe, it's going to America, it's going to Japan, and we're selling it for a great expense. So the more that we can get into buying locally, supporting the local produce, keeping more of the produce in Scotland, and enjoying it. So why should we be eating New Zealand lamb when we have fantastic lamb here? It just doesn't make sense, does it?
One of the highlights of Tom's seasonal calendar is August the 12th.
Today's really exciting for us because it's the glorious 12th here in Scotland, or all over in the whole of Britain. Glorious 12th means the first day of the shooting season. And so tonight on the menu we have the first grouse of the year. Grouse is the holy grails in cooking. Many people come from all over the world to taste the grouse. People have booked up in my restaurant a year in advance just to eat the grouse tonight on the night of the first day of the shooting season. So it's a great honour. So next we're going to have lobster, lamb, duck, grouse, yeah? For me this means everything to have the grouse on the menu tonight. It shows you what type of restaurant we are, what type of chef I am. Shows you everything about my passion for seasonality, shows everything about my passion for what I do, and it's very exciting.
Eating seasonally is not a new idea. In fact, it's the way the older generation always ate, because they didn't have the choice of produce from all over the world as we do today.
It's very much as if we've gone in a big circle, because I know my grandparents and most people's grandparents in the war, nothing ever went to waste there. They wouldn't fly in asparagus from Peru. They would use everything off the land. They would be eating lighter meals in the summer because it was warmer. But once we got into the winter, they'd be using all the root vegetables. They'd be eating stews, food that was going to fill them up in cold winter days. And then we kind of got lost, where we were in this like lost in translation, this kind of period where we were just bringing in everything. And now it seems to be that we're turning back and people are really paying attention to what is seasonality, what's good at this time of year, and what we should be eating.
Some foods, such as olives, blue cheese, spinach and coffee, are acquired tastes. They often take a period of adjustment where the person simply starts to enjoy the offending food through repeated consumption.
Jam, one of Scotland's traditional foods. We love it. On toast, on scones, this sweet-tasting fruity preserve is as Scottish as neeps and tatties. Now meet Fraser Doherty. This young man from Edinburgh knows a thing or two about jam. He is the brains behind Super Jam, a superfruit, super-friendly jam sweetened naturally with grape juice. Super Jam has an annual turnover of 500,000 jars. Fraser is only 20 years old, and he still lives at home with his mum and dad.
When I was 14 or 15, to have suggested that I was going to be supplying Tesco and Asda, two of the biggest supermarkets in the world, I would have been crazy to have imagined as a 14-year-old that would ever be possible. And when I kind of look back at cooking jam in the kitchen when I was that age, it has been an amazing journey, and it's come a very long way from that time. So it all started about 6 years ago when my grandmother taught me how to make jam one afternoon. I was 14 years old and I got really excited about her jam recipes, and soon started making jam in the kitchen at home and selling it to the neighbours and at church fairs and farmers markets, and sort of grew and grew over the course of a few months. And after a while got to the point where I was making about 1,000 jars of jam a week in my parents' tiny little kitchen, and they could never get in to cook the dinner, and I soon had to come up with a big idea to move production into a factory. When I was trying to convince huge companies, factories and supermarkets and other places to work with me, definitely there were a number of people who were sceptical of the 16-year-old coming along with absolutely no money, no experience, and really little more than just a set of recipes and this vague ambition to transform the world of jam.
Fraser had to find a way to make his jam stand out from the crowd.
I did a lot of research and I found out that sales of jam have been in decline for the past couple of decades, and that's mostly because jam's got a very old-fashioned and unhealthy sort of image. It's usually 70 or even 80% sugar, contains lots of additives, and when people think of jam they think of old women, church fairs and the Women's Institute, and I just set myself the ambition of trying to change all of that by coming up with a healthier and more modern brand of jam.
Less than 3 years after he first made jam with his gran, Fraser's Super Jam hit the high street.
Tonight, the jammy teenager who's landed a supermarket deal thanks to his granny's recipe.
When Super Jam launched, there was just an incredible amount of media attention. There were BBC Breakfast and GMTV and This Morning, and TV shows from China and all over the world were interested in the story. And definitely, it's helped the business to grow at a very fast pace.
Success at such a young age has catapulted Fraser into the limelight. He's won a string of awards and found himself the subject of much media attention. But what is it that drives him?
I'm not motivated by money, financial success, or any of the material things that you could buy with that. For me, the exciting thing about starting a company is that I can start something from nothing and grow it into, hopefully a large business. I can challenge the status quo in an industry that's been around for hundreds of years and hopefully use the profits from doing all of that to do good. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to make jam and scones, and she would visit all the elderly people in her area who were living alone, and They often didn't get very many visitors and maybe didn't have any family, and she would take my little brother and I with her at the weekends, and we would have to tell them stories, and my little brother would play his guitar, and it was kind of something that we were always brought up with and that my gran felt very strongly about. And so about a year ago I started a project running tea parties for elderly people. The whole idea is just to have a great afternoon. It's completely free for the guests. We have live music, dancing, scones and clotted cream and jam, and hopefully we put some smiles on a few people's faces.
Lovely. Thank you.
That's all right.
This is wonderful, because I can't get out very much, but this has been great today. And to see all these elderly people enjoying themselves, something wonderful.
The jam was delicious. Probably shouldn't have had the cream, but never mind. It danced it off.
It's great to see a room full of people having a good time, and a lot of the people here have come from care homes, and some of them are living alone, and that's a good opportunity to get out and have fun and make some new friends. So it feels great to be able to give that kind of opportunity to people. Amazingly, talking about jam, making jam, and doing everything to do with jam every day for the past 6 years, I do still love jam and have jam on my toast or porridge most mornings.
If you're training for a marathon or going through a growth spurt, you will crave large portions of grub such as rice and pasta, which power your body and aid development. And if you're pregnant, then much of what you consume may be pretty unappetizing to most.
Fishing has been an important part of everyday life in the Orkney Islands for thousands of years. These waters produce some of the UK's finest seafood, renowned all over the world.
It's champagne compared to plonk white wine. It's a fillet steak compared to McDonald's. It's the top of the range.
What I caught today? Well, I caught 30-something lobsters and about 6 stone of crabs.
What we caught was awesome. It's been a real exceptional season.
So what is it that makes the waters around the Orkney Islands special?
Orkney has a few geographical advantages, shall we say. 68 islands with a lot of shallow water in between them all. North Sea on one side, Atlantic Ocean on the other side, and on top of that, the tail end of the Gulf Stream coming up the west coast.
Well, just out there, you've got one of the strongest currents in the northern hemisphere. You've got real clean water. It's cold water. They're slow growing. It's there's no mud. It's really gravelly, rocky, hard bottom, and I think they just take it for there.
Fish and shellfish make up almost half of all Scottish food exports. And on Orkney alone, a staggering 90% of the lobsters caught are exported.
Well, the lobsters and all the shellfish from here generally go to the continent.
Well, the velvets go to Spain, and the lobsters, they go all over the place, Europe and Holland and Norway.
We export to Spain, to Belgium, to the Far East, China and Hong Kong. We'll have charter planes that come in. We had one in yesterday from Norway, taking a small consignment, about 400 kilos of lobsters.
Stuart manages the Orkney Fishermen's Society, a cooperative set up in the island to market live lobster and supply direct to businesses, making sure that the fishermen get the best possible price for their catch.
Lobster's expensive, for one thing. So there's a price point that Scotland's a small population. There's only so many people. More people in Hong Kong than Scotland, and probably more money. So we sell more lobster in Hong Kong than we do in Scotland. If we could get more people to eat UK caught shellfish, it would be great. But I mean, the velvet crab, for instance, is a largely eaten in Spain, Portugal. You're talking about a small crab, 4 inches across, that people pick up, bite into the whole crab and spit out the shell. In the UK, we invented the fish finger because we don't even like bones in our fish. We're certainly not going to be taking a mouthful of crab shell and spitting it out at the dinner table.
Whatever fish you prefer on your dinner table, it's important for the fisherman to keep one eye on his plate, while at the same time endeavour to repay the kindness that the sea has shown him.
The shell fishery has been important here for thousands of years. We want to ensure that it's still here in a few thousand years more if we can. Back I guess in the late 70s, early 80s, Orkney Islands Council put some money towards setting up a lobster hatchery, and that's grown over the past 10, 12, 15 years, I guess.
The Orkney Lobster Hatchery is the largest in Europe, putting back into the water on average 60,000 juvenile lobsters a year. Dawson Shearer is the manager.
What we do is we go through the catches of the lobsters that come in from the fishermen and set aside the female lobsters that are almost ready to hatch. We do is to take them in, maybe they're in here for 2 to 3 weeks while the hatching process takes place. We'll release them at stage 6, which takes roughly 8 weeks. The idea is just to get them through the vulnerable stage and get them to a point where they can settle on the bottom, and their instinct is to hide and have a better chance of survival.
In a place like Orkney, which is quite sensitive to change, that if we can do a little to help nature along, then it's worth doing it if we can manage.
Initiatives like the hatchery aren't just about meeting the needs of the global market, but also sustaining the livelihoods of the community reliant on these waters.
Orkney's a tiny place. Fishing's important, and crab and lobster and velvet crab fishing's really important. Stromness Harbour wouldn't be the same if the Merlin wasn't going in and out it. And the street of Stromness wasn't the same if you didn't meet Willock walking along it when he was been at the Creels or going to the Creels. It's been like that ever since I was a kid here, and I hope it continues for a long time.
Well, I started when I was 14 and I'm 75 now, so it's a good job. Good job if you like it.